بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين والتابعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين وبعد وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. My dear respected brothers and sisters, as we enter and start the 13th day of fasting, we reflect upon the fact that almost half of the month of Ramadan has already elapsed. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us for our shortcomings, and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us strength and conviction and tawfiq to continue with more strength, more ability, more ibadah, more strength than before, inshallah. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. We continue with the 40 hadith with regards to attaining the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And today we will be reading from hadith number 20 and 21. Hadith number 20 has a chapter heading Babu Ahabbul Biladi ilallahi ta'ala, the places that are the most beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله تعالى عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال أحب البلاد إلى الله مساجدها وأبغض البلاد إلى الله أسواقها. رواه مسلم. It has been narrated by Abu Hurairah رضي الله تعالى عنه that the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم said, the most beloved of places to Allah are the mosques, are the masajid. And the most detested of places to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are the marketplaces. Now, what is the reason behind this, right? Well, the reason behind this is that the masajid serve as the place or the places where the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes place. The value of the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is something that literally keeps the earth rotating. It keeps this dunya intact. How do we know this? We know this from a hadith with regards to what that the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, or kama qala sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that this dunya, this world will not end until there is no one left upon the surface of this earth to say Allah, Allah. To take the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How, subhanAllah, how valuable is that? What is the impact of the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What is the impact of the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What is the impact of the ibadah and the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Right? This is literally the essence of why this dunya was created. The essence of why human beings, you and I, and jinn kind were sent to this earth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah Al-Dhariyat, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. That we were not, Allah has not created insan and jinn kind except for His worship, except for us to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is literally our maqsad and our purpose. And the place and the places where this worship takes place, this is the masajid. This is the houses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah has given to us on this earth. Right? These are the sources of barakah and khair. Right? These are the places where, subhanallah, sometimes when you're on the plane, right, and you look outside of the window, right, and it's nighttime and you're about to land, and you see all of these places that are like brightly lit, and you're like, wow, subhanallah, right? The masajid and the houses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, they shine to the malaika. They are shining examples to the malaika the same way when we look up at the sky and we see the stars, right? Because it is from the masajid, it is from the houses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala where these lights emanate, right? Through the dhikr of Allah, through the remembrance of Allah, through the salah, through all of the ibadah that takes place, right? And so if we look at the opposite of it, وَأَبْغَضُ الْبِلَادِ إِلَى اللَّهِ أَسْوَاقُهَا, why are the marketplaces most detestable in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because this is the place where most people forget about Allah. Most people forget about Allah. People don't remember to do the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the marketplaces. That is why there's a hadith regarding the dua of the marketplace. That what is the huge reward that a person gets? 70,000 malaika and angels make dua. According to one narration, I believe, that if a person recites the dua of the marketplace, La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu lahul mulku wa lahul hamdu biyadihi al-khayr wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir, right? Then, we have so many of these malaika, these angels that are making dua for us. Because in the midst of, all of the people who are engaged and busy with buying and selling and transacting and doing business and doing, all sorts of things, right? A person is chasing after the dunya. Now, in the midst of all of that, a person is remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How beautiful is that? But on a general note, this hadith illustrates for us the value of the masajid, and it showcases to us that the marketplace is not a place where a person should spend most amount of their time. SubhanAllah, a person without iman, right? A person without iman, most of the times, even, if it's not some other haram thing that a person may be indulged in, right? Where does a person spend their time, right? In the malls, in the shopping places, in these places where a person can have, entertainment, and they can do shopping and they can do other things. And now, subhanAllah, the examples of the malls that we have in today's times, Allahu Akbar. You have ski resort, the Dubai Mall and aquariums, and you can dive in the deepest, tank that you can dive into. There's skating rinks. There's so many other things, right? So in order to attract customers, in order to attract the people, how much does the dunya call out to the people, right? From the marketplaces, right? Whereas if a person were to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and flip the script and come to the house of Allah and spend time in the masajid, how valuable would that be? One more hadith comes to mind with regards to this is that from the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? There's a famous hadith that سَبْعَةٌ يُظِلُّهُمُ اللَّهُ فِي ظِلِّهِ يَوْمَ لَا ظِلَّ إِلَّا ظِلُّهُ, that there are 7 categories of people that Allah will grant them the shade of His arsh, His throne on the Day of Judgment, right? And amongst them, one of the categories of people is رَجُلٌ قَلْبُهُ مُعَلَّقٌ بِالْمَسَاجِدِ, that a person whose heart is attached to the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You leave the house of Allah and your heart is yearning, when can I come back? When can I come back to the masjid? When will I get that opportunity again? Subhanallah. So this shows us what a beautiful, opportunity this is for us, that we remain connected with the masajid, we remain connected to those places which are beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we stay away as far as we can, as much as we are able to, from those places that are detestable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second hadith that we read about is Babu Ahabbu Ta'ami ila Allah ta'ala, the most beloved food in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وعن جابر رضي الله تعالى عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن أحب الطعام إلى الله ما كثرت عليه الأيدي. أورده الهيثمي في مجمع الزوائد، وقال فيه عبد المجيد بن أبي رواد وهو ثقة وفيه ضعف. It has been narrated by Jabir radiallahu ta'ala an that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the most beloved food in the sight of Allah is that which brings more people together in its partaking. Allahu Akbar. Right? Sharing, the concept of sharing your food, the concept of inviting people over, the concept of feeding people, right? This is something that is an intrinsic value of Islam. There were Sahaba that literally did not eat until they would actually go out and find people so that they could invite these people, and then they would eat, and they would eat from the same plate. Right? Imagine what type of barakah there is within such an action. Right? When and nowadays, subhanallah, what is it? That instead of multiple people eating together, one person will eat the equivalent of 3 people. Or I should say that one person will order food equivalent to that of 3 people and eat the equivalent of half a person and throw the rest in the garbage. What type of wastage exists? What a lack of barakah, right? Where people are starving in the world, that people are so readily, wasteful. They're ready to waste food. literally throwing fresh food, things that can still be eaten, right? And even things that are on the precipice, right? There's ways to dispose of it so that the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can benefit from it. But if you throw it into the garbage, what happens? That food is completely gone, right? Not only did you not benefit from it, the other creatures and the creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can't also benefit from it. So the best type of food, the most beloved food to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is where the benefit of that food reaches multiple people. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala truly allow us to understand and appreciate this and to practice upon it as much as we are able. In this month of Ramadan, we are exploring these things that are beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this collection so that we can learn and recognize these actions and bring them into our lives with the ultimate goal that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant us His proximity, His nearness, and the tawfiq and the ability to be able to do that which is right. So much so to the fact that when we are leaving the life of this world, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is happy with us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala welcomes us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give me first and all of us the tawfiq and the ability that we're able to do this. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم.